Yemen, the Forgotten War. There is a place once known as Arabia Felix the Happy Arabia, a land of mountains and deserts, of poets and traders, of families who built their lives around faith and endurance. But today, that same land is scarred by war, hunger, and despair. This is the story of Yemen, a country torn apart by politics, power, and pain. To understand how this happened, we must go back to the beginning. For much of the 20th century, Yemen was two nations. In the north, a conservative tribal society ruled for centuries under a Zaydi Shia leadership. In the south, a socialist republic grew under the shadow of the Soviet Union. They were worlds apart, different in politics, in religion, and in vision. But in 1990, the two Yemens united, becoming the Republic of Yemen. It was a hopeful moment, a promise of a new era. Yet unity soon revealed cracks. Power was concentrated in the hands of the few, corruption flourished, and the South felt betrayed by the North. President Ali Abdullah Saleh, who had ruled North Yemen since the 1970s, continued his reign over the new united country. He was a master of survival, balancing tribes, militias, and rival factions to maintain his power. But his rule came at a cost. The people suffered from poverty, unemployment, and repression. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, waiting to erupt. Then came 2011. The Arab Spring swept across the Middle East. From Tunisia to Egypt, people rose to challenge their rulers. In Yemen too, thousands filled the streets, calling for justice and an end to Saleh's long dictatorship. They demanded dignity. They demanded change. After months of protests and bloodshed, Saleh finally stepped down. The world hoped Yemen would find a peaceful path forward, but the old wounds had never healed. In the chaos that followed, new players emerged, and one group in particular would change Yemen's fate forever. They were called the Houthis, followers of a northern Zaydi movement from the rugged mountains of Sada. They had fought the government for years, claiming discrimination and neglect. But now, amid the power vacuum, they saw their chance. By 2014, the Houthis advanced southward, seizing the capital city, Sana'a. They placed the new president, Abdullah Mansur Hadi, under house arrest. In a matter of months, Yemen's fragile transition collapsed. Hadi fled to Saudi Arabia. The government was gone. The country was broken. The Houthis declared control. They said they were fighting corruption, fighting foreign interference, and restoring national dignity. But their rise alarmed Saudi Arabia. To the Saudis, a Houthi-ruled Yemen meant Iranian influence on their southern border. They saw the Houthis as Tehran's proxy. In 2015, Saudi Arabia launched a military campaign to restore Hadi's government, joined by the United Arab Emirates and other allies. They called it Operation Decisive Storm, but there was nothing decisive about it. The war dragged on, and the suffering deepened. The Saudi-led coalition bombed Houthi positions, ports, and cities. The Houthis fired missiles into Saudi territory. Civilians were trapped in the middle. Markets, hospitals, schools all became battlegrounds. Each side blamed the other for atrocities, yet both carried blood on their hands. And as they fought, Yemen's economy collapsed. Food stopped arriving, water systems broke down, electricity went dark. Soon, hunger became Yemen's silent killer. Blockades on ports prevented supplies from reaching those in need. The price of flour, rice, and fuel skyrocketed. Parents watched helplessly as their children wasted away. The United Nations called it the world's worst humanitarian crisis. But even those words could not capture the horror. Imagine a child dying not because of war, but because of hunger in a land that once fed itself. Then came disease. With hospitals destroyed and clean water scarce, cholera spread across the nation. More than 1 million people were infected, the largest outbreak in modern history. Doctors worked without medicine, without pay, without hope. They watched patients die from treatable illnesses. A country once rich in culture and beauty had been reduced to a struggle for survival. Meanwhile, Yemen's map began to fracture again. In the south, Separatists backed by the UAE sought to revive the old South Yemen. In the east, tribal militias took control of oil fields. Al-Qaeda and ISIS found room to operate in chaos, recruiting from the desperate and the lost. It was no longer one war, it was many wars, overlapping, feeding off each other. The longer it went on, the harder it became to see any end. The Houthis controlled the north. The Southern Transitional Council controlled Aden. The Saudi-led coalition remained bogged down, unable to win. And in the middle of all this, 29 million Yemenis struggled simply to stay alive. The numbers are staggering. Hundreds of thousands dead from bombs, hunger, or disease. Millions displaced from their homes. Children growing up in tents, never seeing a classroom. A generation robbed of its future. And yet the world moved on. Yemen faded from the headlines, the cameras left, the outrage quieted, other wars took the world's attention. But in Yemen, the bombs still fell, the cries still echoed. The suffering never stopped. Still, amid all this darkness, there are glimmers of light. Ceasefires have come and gone, but each truce brings brief moments of peace. Talks between Saudi Arabia and the Houthis have shown slow signs of progress. Local communities rebuild their villages brick by brick, even as the world forgets them. Doctors return to ruined hospitals. Teachers gather children under trees to teach them the alphabet. Mothers still hope that their children will live long enough to know peace. Yemen's people are not defined by their war. They are defined by their endurance. They have lost almost everything but not their spirit. Even in the ruins, they celebrate weddings. They pray, they laugh. They love, because to live in Yemen today is to resist despair itself. More than 10 years have passed since the first bombs fell. And still the question remains, why? Why must an entire nation suffer for the ambitions of a few? Why do the powerful play their games while the poor pay the price? The answers are buried beneath rubble, silence, and politics. But the truth is simple: Yemen's war is not just a story of conflict. It is a story of neglect, a story of the world's failure to care. Yet even if the world forgets, the people of Yemen endure. They continue to tell their stories. They continue to dream of the day when planes will carry travelers, not bombs, when their children will carry books, not hunger. And one day perhaps the name Arabia Felix will be true again. Until then, we must remember them. We must speak their names when the world is silent. For the war in Yemen may have been forgotten, but its people should never be.